We're back out here once again, and today I'm throwing down the gauntlet. Are you up for the challenge? What am I talking about? Stick around to find out.
Ah, there we go. I got him. That's another one. Oh, that's another good one, kids. Oh my goodness, that's a good one.
And here's this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to lowbrow fishing. And here in Mississippi, the pre-spawn has given way to the spawn. Those bass have moved up on bed, and they've started the process of continuing the species. Now, hopefully, those little baby bass will get to grow nice and fat, and we can keep catching them. But as I was out on the big lake today, I'm noticing more and more guys have these boats, and some are fancy, some are not so fancy, but they all seem to be packed with the latest electronics. And these guys are staring at their electronics the entire time. They're not paying attention to anything that's going on around them. They pull up into the area, they get out on the front deck, they drop their trolling motor, and they spend the entire time they're there looking at their graphs. Now, this is not a video hating on electronics, because I actually have two rather nice Garmin units on my bass buggy. And so that would make me a hypocrite, because my units have down imaging, side imaging, they've got, satellite mapping, they've got internet connectivity, they've got some nice bells and whistles, and they are awesome tools. But that's what they are. They are tools. But a lot of times anglers go from tools to crutch, to the point where they can't fish without them. And that's my challenge. That's my challenge to you this pre-spawn. When the pre-spawn comes to your area, turn those graphs off. Turn the electronics off and fish without them. Because if they really are tools that are teaching you about bass fishing, then your bass fishing without those graphs should be vastly improved over what it used to be. And for those of you who don't have boats, who are actually fishing from the bank or don't have graphs, well, I've got something for you as well. Because just because you have a boat, and trust me, this is coming from someone who's got two boats. I've got the little boat and I've got the bass buggy, and I'm going to tell you right now, just because you have a boat does not automatically put you on fish. You've got guys that are in nice boats that are getting skunked just as often as you do from the bank. So having a boat doesn't automatically make fishing easier. But again, it's one of those things, it's just a tool. Can you fish from the bank after you've had a boat for a while? It's all about bass patterns and bass behavior. And that's the name of the game. Because whether you have graphs, whether you don't have graphs, whether you're fishing from the bank, or whether you're fishing from the nicest Ranger, Phoenix, Nitro, Skeeter boat, it does not matter. Bass behavior, time and time again, will trump everything else. If you know how to locate those bass, and you know what those bass are looking for in terms of baits and presentations, you will still catch piles of fish on any given day. And that's kind of what I'm stressing here on this channel. Now, I don't hate forward-facing sonar. What you have on your boat, that's your business. Now, I'm not a fan of it in tournament competition, but, that's an argument for a different day. But if you have forward-facing sonar on your boat, if you can afford such a thing, Humminbird 360 or whatever, or Live Scope from Garmin or whatever, if you can afford those things and you have them on your boat and you can use them, then that's fine. But they shouldn't be a crutch. They are not going to put that fish on your hook for you. And a lot of times anglers get caught up in that, where they think, I've got all these tools, now I'm going to be able to catch fish. And then you start using that for a long time, every time you go fishing, and it becomes a crutch. You can't turn them off. When you turn them off, you feel blind. You don't know anything about the water you've been fishing your entire life. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to get to today. Turn those graphs off. See how much they've taught you about bass fishing. And if you want to take this challenge up a whole nother level, up a notch, Do it on a lake you're not familiar with. Go to a fishery that you're not familiar with and break it down without the use of any electronics whatsoever. You might surprise yourself. You might actually be completely lost, not able to get a thing, or you might end up catching a lot more fish than you think you could. And for those of you who don't have boats and who are beating the bank, well, like I said, just because you have a boat does not automatically mean that you're going to catch fish. It does not automatically mean you have an advantage. Now, we know that the bass, they're up shallow a lot of times. Even in the heat of summer, there's going to be bass up shallow. In the fall, in the winter, it doesn't matter. There's always a population of bass up shallow. And if you're a bank angler, you actually have a lot of advantages. You don't need a whole bunch of graphs because A, you don't have nearly as much water to filter through in order to pinpoint those fish. You can say, hey, that's a dock, I can throw there. Or you say, hey, that's a rubble pile, I can throw there. Or a laydown or a bush, whatever. That makes things a lot easier. It's essentially walk and cast, walk and cast. But if you're in a boat, well, obviously you've got a lot more water to deal with. You've got a lot more water to filter through. Whether it's deep, whether it's shallow, what have you, you've got a lot more that you have to cover. Now, the only difference really, I guess, is in your equipment. If you're fishing from the bank, well, you're not going to have a lot of graphs. But I do have a challenge for you as well. As a matter of fact, it may even be more difficult than turning off electronics, and that is open your mind. Instead of always saying, for those of you who do so, instead of always saying forward-facing sonar is bad, forward-facing sonar is turning people, it's killing their skill, it's killing everything, it's ruining the sport of bass fishing, or whatever, open your mind. Spend a month on the other side of the fence. Be a proponent of forward-facing sonar. Dig into it. Find the things that make it good. Because, the real world is gray. It's not so black and white. And I'm telling you, if you open your mind for a little bit and try to look at it from the angle of it actually being good, you may actually find things that are more surprising, things that you would have never otherwise even thought about. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate from both sides over this video, and that's fine. It's not the first video I've done in that vein, and it's not going to be the last. That's kind of what I'm known for. But for those of you who are dependent on your electronics, turn them off. You are losing your touch. A lot of you really are losing your touch. You're spending your entire day looking at your feet, looking at your screens, and you've completely forgotten how to locate bass, what it actually means to go out there, learn bass behavior, and then execute it. The screens are telling you what you need to do. They're doing the work. Again, as I've said, they're not going to put the fish on the hook for you, but they are certainly going to make it a lot easier for you to find them, right? That's the idea. The whole reason we have the electronics is because, well, they make it easy to find fish. And once you find the fish, you're pretty sure you can catch them, I've heard it time and time and time again. People tell me, well, there's no fish in that lake. For the big lake, it's notoriously hard to fish. Now, you might say that I make it look easy, but I kind of cheat. And it's not through editing. It's not the way that you think it is. I'm actually catching the fish that I'm catching the way that I'm saying that I'm catching them. But that little plastic boat, I can go places that a lot of guys can't. That's my advantage. I can go in some super skinny water and I can fish some water that is not nearly as pressured. So that's kind of my mojo. That's kind of where I work. But a lot of times, especially when that water warms up, I'm fishing the same water that everybody else is fishing. But instead of relying on electronics, instead of relying on graphs and charts and all of these things to tell me what to throw, where to throw, when to throw, and how to throw it, I'm figuring that out for myself. And the best part of that is I don't have to guess. It's repeatable. Now, forward-facing sonar is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, that's irrelevant. It's a permanent part of bass fishing. And it kind of takes me back to when I was a kid. Whenever I would get a new bait, I would see something on, Rail Breckenridge or Bill Dance or Roland Martin or any of these fishing legends that I used to watch on TV every Saturday. I would see something new and I would have to get it, and my dad used to give me so much grief about it. And he used to say, well, what are they going to do next? Have a lure that catches the fish for you? He was basically saying that those old school techniques, those things that we look at now as archaic, as hokey even, he saw those as the new technology that was threatening bass fishing. And it couldn't have been anything more than a new type of lure or a new hook or a new way of fishing a jig or a spoon. But to him, that was new, that was different, and it was bad. Now, I've devoted myself to never being that way. I don't ever want to view anything as inherently bad. Because like I said, the world is gray. It's not black. It's not white. There's always two sides to every story. And whenever you look at it that way, you start to open your mind a little bit. So those of you who have got your heels dug in about electronics being bad, about forward-facing sonar being bad, will try spending time in somebody else's shoes whenever it comes to that. You might find that it can be very enlightening. You may still disapprove of it at the end, but knowledge is always a bit of an eye-opener. The more that you can learn, the more that you can know. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is instead of spending your entire day staring at your feet, because that's dulling your senses, that's taking away from your ability to fish. So the next time you go out, you've got to do it again. Because if you're ever where you can't use your electronics, say you've got a little bitty John boat and you're on a small 20, 25 acre lake, right? And that's all you've got to fish. Would you pass on that? Would you say, oh, I can't do that because I don't have my forward-facing sonar or I don't have any graphs? Or would you say, I can do this. I know how to get out there. I know how to break this area down and I can still catch some nice fish? Because that's what it boils down to. Are you letting those graphs and those electronics, are you letting them being teaching tools to you? Are you letting them teach you what those bass are doing, where they're doing it, time of year, weather patterns, temperature patterns, what happens when we get a cold front through, what happens whenever it's hot for a while with no wind? Are you using that and then storing it away? Or are you just mindlessly going around with your electronics trying to fish and say, oh, here they are. Because that's what I see. I see guys get very close to my little plastic boat. They don't even know that I'm there because they're staring at their feet with their trolling motor on high. They're just graphing. That's all they're doing. They're looking at their electronics and they're making mindless casts. They may stop for a second because they see something on their forward-facing sonar or they see something on their graphs, and they cast there for a while, and they may jig it just a little bit. But we even have specialized lures now that are supposed to be specifically for forward-facing sonar. They're more reflective. They have a better image on the screen. So like I said, forward-facing sonar is not going anywhere. It makes way too much money. You're going to ask Garmin and Lowrance and Humminbird to stop with their cash cow? That's not going to happen. You're going to ask MLF or Bass, you're going to ask these guys to stop allowing it in tournaments when there's tens of millions of dollars invested in that? That's not going to happen. It's here to stay. We've got to live with it, whether you like it or whether you don't. So if you fish from the boat and you use those graphs, I challenge you to turn them off for the pre-spawn. Fish the entire pre-spawn because the pre-spawn is easy, right? That's the easiest time of year to fish. That's when, if you're a new angler, you've got the best opportunity to put yourself on fish and catch that bass and bug because you can actually catch fish because your technique doesn't have to be so on point because those bass are starving. They've come out of the winter and they're ready to feed. And for those of you who beat the bank or you don't have electronics and you're dead set against those electronics, will realize, like I said, just because you have a boat doesn't mean you automatically catch fish. There's guys in the boat who skunk just as often as you do. And just because you don't like forward-facing sonar doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I challenge you to look at the other side, to view it from the other side, think about it as a good thing and see what you can learn from that. Anything that you can learn about bass fishing that will help you improve your ability, that will help you catch more fish, find fish faster, day in and day out, every single time you go, well, that's something that I'm all for. So there you have it. My challenge to you for this pre-spawn. If you've got fancy electronics, turn them off. Fish the pre-spawn based only on your knowledge of bass fishing. Can you do that? And if you are opposed to electronics, specifically forward-facing sonar, then I challenge you to go to the other side and look at it from a positive point of view. See what you can learn. It might be an eye-opening experience for you. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.